Hello, believers. I welcome you once more. This is part 2 of the series, Is God Interested in Our Success at the Marketplace? Do not worry if you have not watched the first part of this series. You can still go and watch it. But this discussion is almost independent on its own. You can watch this one, and then at your own time, you can go back to that one and watch. What I'm saying is, you are not so much disadvantaged. I try as much as possible to make every video independent, even if it is a kind of a series. So in this video, we go on with this question. Is God interested in us succeeding at the marketplace? The answer is yes. So you ask, how? The first reason to me is in how we are designed. Let me give you an example of a common thing, like vehicles. When you see a vehicle on the road, by looking at the way it is designed, you are able to know the intention of the designer and the person who assembled that vehicle. Sometimes it could be a 4x4 vehicle, but by looking at it, you can see that this is a 4x4 that is designed for rough terrain, or an SUV that is not so much designed for very rough terrains. By looking at the design of a vehicle, you are able to tell that the designer and the manufacturer of this vehicle had a certain intention. I am a believer that the first assembly line was done by God. God created several parts of us and assembled them together. He created, as we said, the spirit, the soul, and the body, and put them together. So I usually jokingly say the first assembly line was built by God himself. That's not a very important thing. Let's focus on what we are looking at today. Look at the way God designed man. First, or to begin with, he gives man a body. When I talk about man, I am referring to both male and female. So when God created man, he gives man a body. What is a body able to do? A body is able to function in this universe. Our voice, our touch, our sight, our hands, everything that man has been designed with, especially on the body level, is designed to work on this universe. We know in the beginning, in the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, God says, let us make man in our own image. And the image of God is a spirit. So in the beginning, Genesis 1:1, what God is talking about is making man the spirit part of man. If God had stopped there at the assembly line and not gone to chapter 2, where we see the body being created, probably we would be spirits. And we would not have been able to function in this earth, in this universe. So the making, God, apart from assembling or creating our soul and spirit from nothing, he goes ahead and creates our bodies from the soil, so that we are able to interact in this universe, we are able to work this world, we are able to function here. God is a spirit. So Genesis 1:1, if creation stopped there, we will not be able to function here. If you read in the book of 1 Timothy 1 verse 17, if you also read in the book of Genesis 33 verse 20, that is a proof that God is spirit. It says in those two verses I have quoted that God is a spirit. So Genesis 1:1, let us make man in our own image, was the spirit part of us. But God goes ahead and makes the body to make us be able to function here. So how does this design show that God wanted us to function here? One is that he made man in his own image. What is the image of God? Very powerful creator. People usually ask, why did God create these things that we see? My answer usually is, because he's a creator. Because he's a creator by design. So when God says, let us make man in our own image, the inner part of man that is similar to God has the desire to create. That is why every time, every human being has got a desire to create and make something, to improve on something. That is the similarity between us and God. So the let us make man in our own image part was to design man to be a creator. So God, by design, designed you to be a creator just like he is. Because he created, because he's a creator. He is a creator by design. It is It is in his personality to create. So if you are made in the likeness of God, if you are in a man is made in the likeness of God, the desire to create, therefore, is inside you. And that is why people get frustrated when things don't work. When the realities of the world and their realities inside do not agree, they get frustrated. That is why every man on earth, alive, wants to create something, wants to be associated with something nice, wants to be associated with something created, wants to do something, to improve on something that has been created. It is in the image and likeness of God. And that's why I believe God designed us to be successful at the marketplace, because he put inside you the creation power that he has, that we see in creation. He put inside you. So by design, he put an engine that drives you, because your spirit is your engine. Just like we are talking about vehicles, because I had used the example of a vehicle. What drives a vehicle is the engine. So he put inside you the engine that drives you to create, the engine that drives you to make something new, the engine that gives you the desire to create and to improve. Next is God gives you a body to be able to function. But he gives you an engine, like the spirit, and then he gives you a soul, which is like the transmission part of the vehicle. You see, the power of God that is in the engine, which is in your spirit, is transmitted into your body, which is the body of a vehicle, for example, that makes it move. You see, what moves in a vehicle are the tires. What moves the tires? The engine. What transfers the power of the engine to the tires? The transmission, the gearbox. That is how God assembled man, in my opinion. He gave you a spirit, which is the engine, that desires to create, just like the way the engine desires to move the vehicle. He gives you a transmission model that transmits the power from the spirit of God inside you to your body, and that is the transmission in a vehicle. That's the gearbox. And then he gives you a body to function. Just like a vehicle has got tires and everything else that makes it be able to move and stop and take corners and do all those kind of things. So my answer as to why I think God created us to succeed at the marketplace, the first answer is in design. The second answer that makes me believe that God created us to succeed at the marketplace is in his word. When he has created man, in the book of Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, he says, subdue the world and work on it. He also tells man to work and make the Garden of Eden a beautiful place. It is in his word that he wants us to subdue this universe, to succeed in whatever we are doing. Because it says in creation that he placed man in the garden and he told him to subdue the earth, to have control over it. So that subdue means that whatever you put yourself to do, whatever your spirit desires, God has given you the power to subdue the earth and win. But some people really focus on Genesis chapter 3 when man falls. And they say that even if God had said in Genesis 1:1 or 2 that you subdue and win over the universe, man fell into sin and God cursed work. Yeah, it is true. In the book of Genesis chapter 3, God curses the workplace. God curses our marketplaces. He says, the land is cursed because of you man who has sinned. It will have thorns. It will have difficulty. The difficulties we see at the workplace were not the original design. Did you know that 2 chapters later, in the book of Genesis chapter 5, God comes up with another design and plan to take away the curse that he had cast the marketplace? In the book of Genesis chapter 5 verse 29, God comes up with another plan to redeem the cursed marketplace. When Noah is born, his father names him Noah, which means rest or comfort. And what does he say when he's born? He says, through this Noah, the cursed land, the cursed marketplace will be redeemed. That was God speaking through that, the father of Noah. That was God. That was God saying, telling man, okay, I know I cursed the marketplace, but this is my new plan to redeem that curse, to do away with that curse. And later on, after flooding, and Noah gets out, and Noah does the first blood sacrifice ever done by man, recording the scripture. Immediately after the floods, God gives Noah and his descendants another promise. In the book of Genesis chapter 9, God promises Noah that I have given you this universe to subdue. And he even adds that you have control even over the animals. I had given you just plants to make food. Now you can even extend to all the animals, and all the animals will be under your control. So for those of us who are stuck to Genesis chapter 3, I want you to know that less than 3 or 4 chapters later in the scriptures, God comes up with a design to ensure that man is winning at the marketplace. Immediately after Noah does the blood sacrifice that he did, God gives him another promise that I will give you, I will bless you and your descendants. And we are all the descendants of Noah. We all take part in the patriarchy of Noah. He's one of the patriarchs of faith. He's one of the patriarchs that we identify with as believers. So the promise that was given to him after he made the sacrifice stands for us. And you know the most beautiful part is while Noah and the promise because of the sacrifice he made, the believers of today, you and me, are enjoying that promise because of Jesus Christ who went on the cross. So while Noah had to earn it, had to make sacrifices, had to do something, the promise for us to win at the marketplace is for us to just believe. That is why I become uncomfortable when people who are in this covenant that we live in start saying that I want to make this sacrifice, I want to make this kind of sacrifice, I want to give this kind of sacrifice so it can bless me at the marketplace. Personally, I don't believe that. While it is okay to give, while I totally believe in giving, while I am called to give, I know that's my calling, I do not believe that I have to make sacrifices like Noah for God to bless me. Because in the book of John chapter 19 verse 30, Jesus Christ on the cross says, it is finished. That includes any sacrifice that you are supposed to give for you to succeed at the marketplace. True, I know how controversial this one is, but I totally believe it. A lot of times, believers fail at the marketplace because they think there is something they have to do. There is a sacrifice they have to do. There is a giving they have to do. There is a seed they have to plant. There is this they have to do. Yes, there is a place for that, and we will discuss that some other day. But I want to let you know that you are living in rest. You are living in a covenant where every blessing that was promised to every man who lived in the old covenant, in the Old Testament, is given to you free because Jesus Christ died on the cross. So believers, those are my 2 reasons as to why I believe that God designed us to win at the marketplace.